How are you going to get your kids back?
I just have to, for the moment, you know, try and choose acceptance over frustration. You know, I went to Sydney and I didn't behave well for a few days on my last visit to see them.
So how many, a few years ago? Or?
About 3 years ago, yeah.
And
as soon as I got a little bit of money, I was in Perth coaching. Before the season started, I flew over to Sydney to see them. And, you know, whether it was my nerves a bit of seeing them or being in Sydney is a very emotional place, or is it the fact I know a dealer? But, you know, I hadn't had anything for a long time, and, you know, I went to Sydney and...
How long was a long time? Are we talking years?
Yeah, a few years.
So you hadn't...
I've had long periods of sobriety, and, you know, trying to get my life back on track. You know, I might have started smoking a few roll-ups, which I've stopped now.
Roll-up cigarettes or weed?
Yeah, roll-up cigarettes. No, I haven't had any, you know, smoked any weed for donkey's years. But...
So you hadn't seen your children for a number of years?
Yeah, because
you
of
hadn't
COVID.
Taken anything for a number of years?
Yeah.
And then you're going to Sydney, you're flying from Perth, you land in Sydney from Perth.
I go on the midnight horror.
The overnight, yeah.
Overnight, so I've had no sleep. I want to stay awake to see the kids. And I went and got some speed. And then didn't sleep for 3 or 4 days. And when I could have seen them on Father's Day morning, I couldn't get out of bed. And when I checked my phone, there was no message saying Happy Father's Day, so I didn't even ring them. I got stubborn and thought, you haven't even messaged me Happy Father's Day. And I knew I couldn't spend the day with them because there's a new man and they were having a family thing. But my behavior was just, you know, totally out of order. And, you know, my second daughter, she just sent me the message I got on Father's Day was, I'm done with you. You know, and, you know, that's been pretty heartbreaking to be dealing with the last few years, because, you know, I was really, really close with, and...
Well, she's hurt, right? She's lost her dad that she had that relationship with, I guess, and she's angry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I split up with Fiona, my second wife, at that time, you know, it probably wasn't good for me to be around if I was using or having issues with drugs at that point. But I do distinctly remember when I handed the house over to her and wrote you know, we did a settlement, and I gave him basically everything. I remember, you know, part of my brain was going, good, you know, because you're not going to be able to stop until you run out of money. You know, so was I pushing myself towards that point of well, I've got no money, I haven't got any money, I can't get drugs and gamble. Makes it a lot easier, but, you know, I remember saying to Fiona, you've just become a millionairess, you know, and smiling, but, you know, I got 3 kids in Sydney, living on 6 acres, and, you know, hopefully one day it will get passed down to them, but they've had, you know, I haven't been there for them. And I wish I could have been, and it's been, you know, heartbreaking to be in India trying to work and make a living. You know, I had one season where I did go back to Sydney and coach Blacktown just to be near them, but it wasn't particularly, you know, satisfying or gratifying. You know, just catching up with them like once a week for a meal on a Friday, and then, you know, they go back to the house and you're stuck on your own again. It was.
Do you need people around you, or are you quite happy on your own?
I'm quite happy on my own. I'm quite happy on my own, but I do enjoy now, you know, the interaction with, you know, people. At the moment, I'm living in supported housing in Portsmouth. You know, so it's a share house of addicts who are all clean. You know, we get drug tested once a week. But, you know, there's a few people. It's good that I'm in a house with other people, not totally on my own. Because, you know, that tendency to isolate and become very introverted and just not communicate with the outside wall, and you know, that's not a healthy way to be living. So.
And how are you financially? How are you supporting yourself? I mean, how are you getting by? How are you affording your peppermint aero?
Yeah, that's probably one of my little treats. No, at the moment I'm living off £6 a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and the rest of any housing benefit goes straight to the company called I forgot what they're called now, but the supported housing fellowship that, you know, and I can stay there for up to 2.5 years, provided I stay clean. But you know, it's also time. It's time to get back out there in the real world, and you know, get the mic in my hand and get commentating on England matches. Hopefully, we'll find a bit of work doing dinner speaking.